Hello children, I'm glad you could join me again for another Bible story time. Do you remember last week we learned how Jesus, the Son of God, had the power to say to the wind and the waves, "Be still," and immediately they were still. And do you remember how frightened his disciples were in that storm? They were so glad Jesus was with them to be their helper. Well, today we're going to learn how Jesus, as the Son of God, has power over something else. He has power over sickness. And that's a wonderful thing to know, that Jesus has power over sickness. But just before we get started, Rupert wants to come and say hello to you. Children, can you say hello to Rupert? Rupert wants to tell you about something that happened to him last week, don't you, Rupert? Rupert's been telling me about it. I'll tell the girls and boys, Rupert. And in fact, this is a little bit of a clue as to what has been happening to Rupert, isn't it, Rupert? Rupert is very proud of himself because the farmer said that Rupert could learn to be a sheepdog. And Rupert's very, very pleased about that. And so Rupert was in the paddock learning how to run after the sheep and get them to go from one paddock to the next. And Rupert was concentrating so hard on the sheep, he kept running so fast that he didn't see a big thistle bush, and he ran straight into it, and he got some thorns in his leg here. Well, the farmer had to stop and put some disinfectant on his wound there and fix it up, and Rupert kept running around the paddock. But the next day, he could hardly stand up on that leg. It was really, really sore, and it was red, and he was limping around the farmhouse. And the farmer realised it had got infected. So the vet came and gave Rupert some medicine. But the vet said Rupert wasn't allowed to go in the paddock for a few days. Rupert had to stay in the kennels. What did you think about that, Rupert? He did not like having to stay in the kennels. But your leg's getting better, isn't it? And now you're starting to be able to walk and run around again, aren't you? And so the farmer has said that Rupert can go back into the paddocks in 2 days' time. Isn't that right? And Rupert's really looking forward to that. Well, we're going to hear about someone else today, Rupert, who had a problem with his leg. You only had your problem for a short time. But this man had his problem for years and years and years. So, Rupert, boys and girls, let's get ready for our story now. And Rupert will say goodbye. Well, in our story today, Jesus has made his way from the countryside down the hill and then up to Jerusalem. And Jerusalem was a big city. It was a big city surrounded by a large wall which had many gates in it. And Jesus came into the city at this particular time because he wanted to go to the temple to worship God. Many other people came to the city of Jerusalem at that time too. One of those gates in the city wall was called the Sheep Gate, which is where people bringing sheep to Jerusalem would walk through. And near the Sheep Gate was a pool of water. In fact, there were 2 pools of water, one just slightly above the other. They were twin pools, and around the pools were these verandas, and a veranda down the middle. And what used to happen is that people would bring their sick friends to lie on their mats around the edge of the pool. And that was because back then people believed that when the water started to bubble, the first person into the pool would be cured of whatever was their problem, whether they couldn't see or if they couldn't hear or if they couldn't walk. They believed they'd be made better. Now, I'm not sure that actually happened, but that's what people believed. And so all around these pools were lots and lots of sick people. And one of those sick people was this man here. And this man was lame. He had not been able to walk for about 38 years. He couldn't use his legs. And his friends used to bring him to lie on his mat beside this pool day after day, year after year. What a horrible life this man had. He couldn't walk, he couldn't run, he couldn't work. He couldn't just go and visit his friends when he wanted to. He really didn't have a great life. He could talk to the other sick people who were around the pool, but it wasn't really a great life at all. Well, during this time, Jesus came and had a look at these pools at Bethesda. And he saw all the sick people lying around the pool, and he saw this man. And he knew that this man had been in this situation for many, many years. And Jesus said to this man, "Do you want to get better?" Now, boys and girls, if you'd been that man, what would your answer have been? Well, this man didn't know who Jesus was, and so I suppose he didn't know that Jesus could make him better. But what the man did say to Jesus was this. He said, "My friends bring me here and I lie here on my mat, and I'm waiting for the waters to bubble so I can be the first one in. But I don't have anyone here to help me get in, so I just can't get in and be the first one into the water." And Jesus looked at this poor man. What a hopeless life he had. And Jesus said to this man, "Get up, take up your bed and walk." Now, if I said that to someone, it wouldn't really work, would it? Nothing would happen. But because Jesus is the Son of God, he had and has the power to make this man's legs work. And so when Jesus said to the man, "Get up, take up your bed and walk," Jesus, all of a sudden, this man suddenly knew that he had the power and the strength to do that. And he hadn't had that power and strength for years. And so the man stood up and he rolled up his mat and he was able to walk. It was absolutely wonderful. The man was so happy. His life was now going to be so different. He would no longer have to come every day and just lie around this pool talking to lots of sick people. He would now be able to go to the temple and worship God. He'd be able to visit his friends. He'd be able to work. His life had been completely changed. And his life had been changed because Jesus is the Son of God and he has the power to get rid of sickness and disease. Isn't that wonderful that Jesus can do that, boys and girls? Our Lord Jesus is the Son of God and he can cure sick people. And so I'd like you to just think about this week, about how wonderful our Lord Jesus is and about the power that he does have. And I'd like you to thank Jesus for having that power. And so now, until next time, girls and boys, I will say goodbye and I'll look forward to some more Bible time with you another time. Bye-bye.